Welcome back, guys. Just got done recording another video and got it uploaded. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's about the Flesh and Blood TCG. I opened up a couple of Blitz decks for that game and talked about it a little bit, so go check it out. So today I've got another video I've been wanting to record for a while. It's a Commander deck showcase of Liliana Heretical Healer from Origins. This is one I've wanted to build for a while. I did pull this foil version of Liliana from an Origins pack probably about 3 months ago, and ever since I did that I was like, you know what, I gotta build her. So what I'm going to do is just kind of showcase the deck. I'm going to try not to spend too much time on each card. We'll just kind of breeze through it and talk about it a little bit here and there, and hopefully you guys enjoy this, and I'll try to post the deck list along in the description, and that way if you are interested in building this, you can go check it out and go to your respective singles online market or buy it from your local game store. Alright, so we'll start with Liliana Heretical Healer. I'll read her front to back, and just because she's the face card, she's the commander. Alright, so she starts out as a 2/3 black legendary creature, human cleric, lifelink. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile Liliana Heretical Healer. Then return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control. If you do, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. Alright, once that happens and she transforms into Liliana Defiant Necromancer. Her +2 is each player discards a card. That includes yourself. Her -X ability, return target non-legendary creature card with converted mana cost, or mana value now as they call it, X from your graveyard to the battlefield. Really strong. If you can get her built up, she can bring back bigger stuff, but it's mostly for your smaller zombie creature recursion from the graveyard, so you can just kind of keep looping that. Her -8 ability is you get an emblem whenever a creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. That's a creature, so any creature that dies, that's including your opponent's creatures, your creatures, it doesn't matter. They come back at the next end step and you get them. And it doesn't say your end step, it says the next end step. So creatures die on an opponent's turn, you get them back at the next end step. You get all of them. So works out well. Alright, so put this to the side. Alright, that's the divider for the deck box I've got to go along with this. Alright, move this out of the way now. Liliana of the Dark Realms. This is the one that's kind of based around tutoring for swamps. You can do a +X/+X or a -X/-X ability, where X is the number of swamps that you control. And of course her emblem is swamps you control have tap, add 4 black to your mana pool. Really strong ability, especially for tutoring swamps if you're having trouble getting lands out. Really useful. Next is Liliana Vest from Lorwyn. Of course going with the Lily discard theme, as well as she can tutor for a card, okay, and put it on top of your library. So it's like a -2 built-in demonic tutor, basically, except it doesn't go into your hand, it goes on top of your library. So it'd be more like vampiric tutor, really. A -8, put all creature cards and all graveyards into play under your control. Super strong. That's Rise of the Dark Realms built into her. Alright, Liliana Dust Majesty, some zombie creation synergies, and there's a board wipe on her -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures, so that could be super useful. So her and Liliana Vest both cost 5, where Lily of the Dark Realms costs 4. So you can kind of see with some of the swamp ramp that we have, we can really pump out a lot of mana to drop these planeswalkers and really start making zombies and just doing shenanigans. Alright, Liliana Dreadhorde General from War of the Spark. Anytime a creature you control dies, you can draw a card with her. So you can more zombie creation. You can make players sacrifice creatures. You can also make players get rid of their permanents except for a single permanent of each type. So really strong. She does cost 6, but like I said, with the swamp, with the mana ramp that we're going to have in this deck, not going to be a problem. Alright, Next one is a 3 cost, so she's one of the cheaper ones. I have actually gotten her out like turn 1 with a Dark Ritual, which is not necessarily a bad play. You know, sometimes you might want to save a Dark Ritual, which we'll look at in just a few minutes, for other things, but you know, not a bad turn 1 play if you have it. Alright, so she's got some ability there where she can do some minus abilities on creatures. She can mill some cards and then return a creature card to your hand, and you can get an emblem at the beginning of your end step. Put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is 2 plus the number of zombies you control. So lots of zombies in this deck. There's going to be tons of zombies on the battlefield. Her emblem is just going to be insane if you can pop it off. Alright, Liliana Untouched by Death from Core 19. Again, it's got kind of that mill in ability where you can mill into the graveyard, and if you have at least one of the cards that you mill as a zombie, you can cause everyone to lose 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Another -X ability on the second one, and you can do a -3 and cast zombie cards from your graveyard this turn. So big play at the end there. You could -3 and then bring everything out after getting board wipe and really recover from a board wipe or something of that nature. Alright, Liliana Wicker of the Dead from Core 21. She's not the newest version of her, but the second newest. So again, discard theme on the +1, another -X theme on the -3, and then her emblem -7 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. So not quite getting all the creatures back, but you know, that is useful. You can use that in combat, grab somebody's creature or one of your own, put it on the battlefield. Works out in your favor. Last but not least, the newest version of Liliana, Professor Onyx from Strixhaven. She has the Magecraft built in. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcerer spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Pretty interesting. If you could loop that into a combo, you could basically have her out and just make everyone die, and you gain infinite life. +1, you can lose 1 life and look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 1 in your hand and the rest on your graveyard. So kind of a tutor effect, only for the top 3 cards. Still powerful, lets you cycle, lets you get cards in the graveyard, so very beneficial in this deck with the zombies and the recursion. You can make opponents sacrifice a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control for the -3. And then her emblem is each opponent may discard a card, her ultimate. Each opponent may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life. Repeat this process 6 more times. So that's pretty rough. You could just end the game right there, depending on where your opponent's life totals are. So really cool. She's not my favorite version of Liliana, but I do like her a lot. She's up there. She's top 3. The only Liliana Planeswalker that I do not have in this deck is Liliana of the Veil. Although she would be really useful in the deck, I don't own a copy, and she is still around $70 to $75 depending on condition, and that's just for a standard copy. Maybe something I add later, but this deck is already got a lot of value, a lot of expensive cards that make the deck work, and she's not necessarily one of the cards that the deck needs, but if I do get a copy, she will later on be teched into the deck. Alright, going on to the creatures. Not going to spend a lot of time on these. I know I've kind of talked about the Planeswalkers quite a bit, but we're going to try to keep the video under 20 minutes if possible. So what we're going to do is just kind of do these one at a time. So we got Carrion Feeder, Cemetery Reaper, the Lord, so other zombies get +1/+1. Alright, Crypt Breaker. It's pretty standard zombie auto include if you're gonna build a deck around one. Crypt Ghast does have an extort ability, and whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you can add one more black. Super useful. See, the mana ramp is real in this deck. It is super good. Death Baron, Diagraph Colossus, Fleshbag Marauder from Commander Legends. Enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature. It can help you get something off the board if you want to trigger something, trigger an ability, and recur it back. Now, Ghoulcaller Gisa. She could easily be the commander of this deck. I could swap her out for Lily Heretical Healer and probably make this deck tick just like it would normally. I just wanted to be different. I like Liliana, I like the character, I like her as a planeswalker. So I put Gisa in the 99. She's there for support. You know, just to be different, because there's some guys in our play groups that do run Gisa, and I don't want to copy them. Okay, this is just my own flavor to the deck. Right? But she does have a sacrifice ability for black and tap, and you can put X/2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. Super strong. So if you've got a big nasty creature like Grave Titan or something along those lines, you can make tons of zombies off of it. Recur the Grave Titan, make more. You see where this is going. God Eternal Bantu, another great zombie card from War of the Spark. And here's the Grave Titan we just mentioned. Grave Crawler. Good old Gary, Grey Merchant Asphodel. So, Gary can just end a game. Depending on what your devotion is to black, cause all of your opponents to lose X life, and you gain X life. And you gain life equal to the life lost. So, basically, say there's 15, say you have 15 black devotion, right? You play Gary, then you got 17. Well, you gain, each opponent loses 17 life, and then you gain 17 life for each opponent, right? So that just, it stacks because it says you gain it equal to the life lost this way. So you could just end a game outright, depending on what your devotion is. Pretty good auto include. This is the time shifted old border. I like the old border cards. I'm a sucker for them. Josie Vest, Lich Knight. Liliana's Devotee. Liliana's Standard Bearer. Lord of the Accursed from Amonkhet. Lord of the Undead. Midnight Reaper. Some card draw there, even though you lose life. Here's a big one that I almost built a commander deck around, but I decided to include him in the 99, again, because I like Liliana, and I want her to be the commander of this deck. Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Murderous Rider. Plague Belcher from Amonkhet. Relentless Dead. Sidisi, Undead Vizier. Undead Arger from Modern Horizons 1. This is the old border foil version that you can get in the Modern Horizons 2 packs. Thought it looked really cool. The artwork really goes nicely with the old border foil. Undead Warchief. Zombie Master. Dreadhorde Invasion. Starting with enchantments now. So Dreadhorde Invasion for More of the Spark, really good card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may lose 1 life, and you lose 1 life and amass 1. So that's the zombie army token where you put the +1/+1 counter on it. So if you already have 1, it just keeps adding it. So it adds 1 corner every time. It also says whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink till the end of turn. Alright, the next one is going to be the next enchantment is Endless Ranks of the Dead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is half the number of zombies you control rounded down. So that's every upkeep. So pretty strong. Liliana's Caress. Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. That just hoses cycle lane decks big time. Liliana's Mastery. Oath of Liliana. Open the Graves. Phyrexian Arena. This is a really good card draw enhancer. You do lose a life off of it, but at the beginning of your upkeep you get to draw an extra card. Waste Not. Alright, moving into the instant sorceries. Army of the Damned. Command the Dread Horde. Confront the Past. Again, earlier, like I mentioned, does have Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual is super useful. I would venture to say it's an auto-include in any mono black deck. Dark Salvation. Alright. On to our tutors. So the first one is going to be the Demonic Tutor. Again, excellent card. Been around for a long time. It's still super useful today. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand, then shuffle. It is sorcery speed because it's a sorcery, and but it's just a black and 1. So, looking for that key piece. You know, if you're looking for something to win the game, you could definitely, you know, if you had Dark Ritual and some other cards, and you look for that one card that may win the game for you, it's good to have a tutor around. All right, next tutor is going to be Diabolic Intent, another sorcery speed. As an additional cost to play Diabolic Intent, sacrifice a creature. So that kind of goes around with this sacrificial, you know, sacrificing the creatures and recursion. Search your library for a card and then put that card in your hand, then shuffle your library. So I like the tutors that put the cards in your hand, right? It is sorcery speed, but it just makes it to where, like, you know, if you're playing against some opponents that can manipulate the top card of your deck, you know, i.e. maybe like a mill player or something of that nature, this keeps them from doing that, right? So you can play this, get your card, put it directly in your hand, not have to worry about it anymore. Alright, Feed the Swarm. Creature destruction or enchantment destruction. Enchantment destruction in black's really hard to find. Feed the Swarm is an excellent card for that. You do lose life equal to the permanent's mana, converted mana cost, but it's well worth it depending on what the enchantment is, or the creature for that matter. Finale of Eternity. It's kind of a Rise of the Dark Realms. Return, you know, you spend X, so destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X, so kind of a board wipe. If X is 10 or more, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it doesn't get every creature, but it's just yours. But it's kind of cool because it's got some removal and recursion built into one card. And the X cost is very flexible. Force of Despair. Mutilate. These are the board wipes. Reanimate, good old classic. Recursion, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Only costs 1 black though. Rise of the Dark Realms. 2 black and 7, put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Rise of the Dreadmarn. settle the score. Creature removal and put some loyalty counters on your Lilianas. Village Rites for some card draw. Another big board wipe, Zombie Apocalypse. Return all zombie creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped, then destroy all humans. So, recursion, and then, like, depending on what your opponent's playing, can be really handy. Alright, so that's it for the instant and sorceries. Next we're moving on to the artifacts. This is a Bantu's Monument. It's a black creature spells you cast, costs 1 less to cast, so that's really good. Lets you decrease the cost, save some mana. Whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it is a cast trigger, so making all the zombies is not on cast, right, because they're just being created. But it can still be beneficial to you. But really, that reduction in cost is really helpful with the rest of their creatures. Caged Sun. Charcoal Diamond, just a good generic black mana rock. Does come in tap, but still good to have, especially early. Guest Grimoire. So when your opponents discard, you get to draw. Jet Medallion, another reduction for black spells you cast. Nyx Lotus. Enters the battlefield, tap, choose a color, add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion. So obviously our devotion is going to be to black, so like depending on what you have on the battlefield, this thing could tap for 10, 15, 20, you know, a lot. So we're not going to worry about not having enough mana to cast these big spells that we've been looking at. Soul Ring is next. Good classic staple for Commander. Pretty much auto-include in every deck. Alright, on to the mana base. So we'll start with the special lands first. So first up is Bojuka Bog. So it enters tapped. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from a target player's graveyard. And it does tap for black. So graveyard hate for those decks in the mirror. You got some opponents manipulating your graveyard, manipulating their graveyard, trying to bring stuff back. Your Golgari players with recursion built in, other black players, they're going to be doing shenanigans, right? So this is just to keep that in check. One of those things, like I don't always play this early if I get it. I try to hold on to it, and then if I absolutely have to play it for land, I will. But I do try to save it for those pesky other graveyard decks. Alright. Cabal Coffers. Not much to say here. Pay 2 into it, and then it tap and add black for each swamp you control. Could tap for a lot, depending on what it is, and usually going to tap for at least 4 to 6, especially early on. But late game, being able to tap it for God knows what it'll be. And if you have that the Liliana of the Dark Realms, where each swamp taps for 4, I mean, you could cast whatever you wanted to cast. So Cabal Coffers definitely, I wouldn't say auto include because it is a little pricey, but definitely worth an investment in a mono black deck. Cabal Stronghold, pay 3 into it and then add black for each swamp you control. So it's similar to Cabal Coffers, but it does cost a little bit more to pay into it. But it also benefits that in the fact that you can tap it and add colorless without having to pay into it and tap for black. So a little utility there. Castle Lothwain for card draw. Say for instance you're down to like 1 card and you've got all this mana and you're not really getting what you want. You can do this and you can draw a card, and you do lose life to the number of cards in your hand when you do the ability. But if you're down to 1 card or no cards, you're only going to be losing 1 to 2 life. So it's useful in a pinch. Crypt of Agadine. You can add black, or you can pay 2 and add black to your mana pool for each black creature card in your graveyard, so that could potentially tap for a lot. It does come in tapped, which is not great, but definitely worth it, especially in the early game when you don't mind lands coming in tapped if they have to. Alright, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Great land card for any monocolored deck. It doesn't matter. White, black, you choose. So it adds equal to your devotion, kind of like the Nyx Lotus, or it can add colorless. You do have to pay 2 into it, kind of like Cabal Coffers, but it's still definitely worth it, especially based on your devotion could be, 20. So, alright, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth makes every land a swamp, so basically, if you have any Swamp Walk cards, anything like that, that turns that on, as well as making all of your land swamps. So, when you use Cabal Coffers, it's going to add even more, right? When you have that Liliana of the Dark Realms emblem, it's just going to add even more. It'll give you that ability, so definitely worth it. This is a foil version from the Time Spiral Remastered. I really like that one. Let's show the foil off. Alright, so the rest is just basic lands. So it's 26 swamps. I had some older ones. I kind of wanted a variety, so there's a couple of trying to remember which ones these are. They're from 97, so I want to say it's not Portal, but maybe 4th or 5th edition. I think they're 4th edition because it does have the emblem. Anyways, I digress. These are some Portal swamps. Just some old ones I had in my collection. Then I've got a few of the foil etched from Modern Horizons 2. They don't shine quite as much as the other foils, but they do look cool, so I threw some of those in there. Alright, now next up we've got some of the Zendikar Rising full art lands. They're all foil. Alright, so we've got some Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation full art lands. And then last but not least, some unlands from Double Masters VIP packs. We got 1 foil and then 2 non-foil. Alright, that was 26 basic swamps. Alright guys, thanks for joining me today. Sorry it was a long-winded video, but something I wanted to do. If you have any suggestions or comments or things I missed or things I may have said incorrectly, feel free to post it in the comments. Let me know. Keep it cool and chilled out in the comments, please. So no negativity, please, if you don't mind. And just everybody get along and let's be constructive. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.